Let's start with the election coming up here, Korea, Steve. So there's two companies, Samsung and SK Hynix in Korea, that make something called high bandwidth memory. There's two things. Well, there's a bunch of things, but there's two real things you need to make this AI and a lot of the new technologies we're working. You need the high bandwidth memory, and you also need the chips and the semiconductors. So think, I'm simplifying it, but think data sits in the memory, and then the semiconductors do the math right around this AI stuff. So we have 70% of the high bandwidth memory requires from South Korea. So if you have the CCP inserts their influence now in this election and has stronger leadership aligned with them, we're not only dealing with our chips and semiconductors, which everybody knows is made in Taiwan, but we're dealing with the high bandwidth memory that's in South Korea. And then, as you've seen a lot in the news over the weekend, the rare earths, which is where China backed down on their agreement earlier, that goes into making these things. So the underlying substrates that run a lot of the technology we're talking about reinventing manufacturing on ends up controlled or influenced by the Chinese Communist Party.
And people, this is what I say, forget any allegiance, any love for, association with, democracy, anything like that. Just realpolitik dealing with the American economy. If we lose access to this, if the Chinese Communist Party controls South Korea and controls Taiwan, how big a hit is that on the post-industrial digital economy of the United States of America, sir?
It's everything. It takes away all our leverage. We're looking at, a lot of these new announcements have been AI related in the Middle East. There have been, the partnership there in the Middle East, Taiwan Semiconductor building in Arizona, as you mentioned. Like, all this stuff requires rare earths, it requires semiconductors from Taiwan, and it requires high bandwidth memory from South Korea. So it's no wonder that, Secretary Bessent is having trouble and they're having trouble negotiating with the Chinese. They feel like they have us. They're certainly going to wait and see how this election plays out in South Korea and what their negotiation points are. And, as Hegseth talked about over the weekend, these aren't drills. And, this is getting very serious in Taiwan.